Hello everyone, I am the Weather Dude. Welcome back, and today we are going to be talking about Hurricane Hilary that is approaching as it grazes by the Baja California and will eventually move into the southwest United States. But as always, be sure to like, subscribe, and share this video as it does help the channel a lot. And we're going to get right into it here. Looking at here, Hurricane Hilary. So, maximum winds according to Tropical Tidbits. We're going to have the National Hurricane Center update up here pretty soon. But according to them, 95 knots. So around 110-mile-an-hour winds right now. But keep in mind that's still very low minimum central pressure, 958 millibars, which means this storm is still packing quite a punch here. Now we take a look at it on the satellite. So this is the infrared satellite first. You can see it's still got quite a bit of rotation. Of course, that eye has since dwindled due to, of course, the storm weakening due to cooler waters. We've got more wind shear. You'll be able to see more evidence of that on the visible satellite, but it's still a pretty powerful storm as it makes its way pretty much moving due north at this point. So there's been some debate, and we're going to look at this in the models a little bit later, on whether or not it may interact with the Baja California, the peninsula here. That's still in question, because if it doesn't, it may mean the storm could hold its strength a little bit longer. But even if it did keep moving over these waters, you got to keep in mind the waters near California, like the state of California, are like in the upper 60s. So it would pretty much weaken anyway, whether it went over land or over water. But if it went over land, it would weaken faster. But that's pretty much the main question at this point. Will it just skim the coast and stay over water, or will it kind of graze the coastline? And I think the latter is more likely here. But you can see it's still got powerful bands coming off this. I mean, Cabo San Lucas definitely was getting, whacked by this storm earlier today. And of course, we got some thunderstorms bubbling up here because we got moisture moving over very warm water. You got to understand the Gulf of California here, right? Which is like kind of separates Baja California and like the mainland of Mexico. This water in here is near 90 degrees, kind of like the Gulf of Mexico. So when the thunderstorms move over that, it's causing them to bubble up. And of course, combine that with the daytime heating of the day because, of course, we know they are several hours behind compared to Eastern time at least. Right, so there's your storm moving to the north here. That's Hurricane Hilary. And you can see this here on the visible satellite. You can kind of see the center is like here, but we're starting to see that main zone, the main thunderstorm complex, kind of become a little bit more detached. It kind of looks, instead of it like of thunderstorms rotating around the center perfectly, it looks kind of like what I kind of describe it as a Venn diagram, where like we get like two big circles kind of like overlapping each other, right? So it's not really like perfectly rotating around the center, but it's still a good looking hurricane. All right, we still got, so we got some banding going on here. Still, we got some powerful thunderstorms. Still a great storm to look at on satellite. But at this current track, right, so if the center is over here, it may stay over water a little bit longer, but I think it will eventually interact with land. Or the other possibility is, again, it could make landfall in Southern California. So you can see low position right here, 114 degrees west and about 23 degrees north. Those are your coordinates. All right, here we have the model tracks. All right, you can see they're in pretty good agreement. This is pretty much going to go up California into Nevada, and the remnants will go in through Nevada, Oregon, into Idaho. All right, you can see some of these tracks, right, over the next 24 hours, they do seem to agree that it will end up, in the northern part of the Baja California, that peninsula. So it'll be near California, but we're not sure if it'll be a landfall in the state of California. Some models definitely do indicate that. It could make another turn to the left, but that is what it's looking like here, especially over the next 24 hours, because we know Sunday, that's going to be your day for California, and then lingering potentially into Monday as well. All right, but there's going to be a lot of impacts, and I'm going to explain why as the video goes on. I'm going to be explaining, why a tropical storm or hurricane, but even if it's just a tropical storm, going through a state like California can be so deadly. I'll explain that as the video goes on. All right, so here we go. GEFS model tracks show the storm will continue to weaken, but keep in mind, again, pressure will still be under 1,000 millibars even when it gets near California. All right, so still a pretty powerful system nonetheless. Right, and you gotta also keep in mind that it has a pretty big wind field, so California could start seeing wind impacts when the storm is down here, when maybe it's still between 980 and 990 millibars of strength, right? Because that big wind field, we might start seeing wind impacts when it's, maybe like further south right here. Right, so it's not like the storm is it's not like you're gonna feel the impacts once it's on top of you. I mean, you'll start feeling it before then, because you're gonna have like the outer rain bands, and you're gonna have the center coming in closer to you eventually as well. And keep in mind, it could still be around 1,000 millibars. That seems to be the model consensus. Okay, I don't know what this model's doing. It's gonna go up San Francisco. I don't know what that's doing, but As it goes up Nevada, the storm could be still at 1,000 millibars, right? So even though the wind speed still might be pretty weak, 20, 30 miles an hour, that storm itself, it's still got a lot of energy in there because the pressure is still 1,000 millibars, which is by no means low, but, it's still pretty high compared to your typical, low pressure system that you would see over the mainland United States. Right? GEPS model tracks. Now, these ones are interesting because this plays out. This, again, could be more bad news for California, right? So they have a little bit more of a turn to the left or to the west, if you will. And that black line is the median, right? The middle, the average of all these models. And they have it staying over the water and then making landfall near like Los Angeles, Catalina Island. So that would be bad, right? Because if it's staying over water for longer, and yes, again, as you'll see in the video later on, yes, the waters are cooler, but again, this storm would still be stronger if it stayed over water versus going over land, especially because there's mountains here. So the mountains would really kill the storm in terms of the wind speed, but it would enhance the rainfall, right? And we're gonna be talking about that later on as well. So again, models definitely are differing a little bit, but the general consensus is that it will go somewhere near the Baja California, that peninsula, and then go up through California into Nevada. That pretty much will be certain. It's just a matter of exactly where it goes could determine its strength in the future. Okay, so here we go. A lot of models have it over the next 24 hours tapering off a hurricane status. That would be like once it gets to this point. I would say after this point here, a lot of models seem to think it'll exit hurricane status and become a tropical storm, right? And then still staying a tropical storm for the next day after that, right? So 24 hours from now, it loses hurricane status. It's got another 24 hours after that before it loses its tropical storm status. So that's why these effects could still be very major here for California. Right, let's take a look at the wind probabilities here for the National Hurricane Center. And here you can see we have the threat of tropical storm force winds, a pretty high threat, at least 50% chance in Southern California. And I can assure you, as the storm gets closer, these purples that you'll see, because once time goes on, the certainty will increase. So this purple will eventually move into Southern California. And we know that because there's already tropical storm warnings going out for Southern California. Los Angeles and San Diego and all the islands off the coast of California are included in that. So tropical storm force conditions will be approaching. Now, the earliest reasonable arrival time seems to be like midday Sunday. All right, so for most of Southern California, and then the most likely arrival time of these winds seems to be Sunday afternoon, right? And then continuing into the evening and overnight. So that seems to be the consensus right now from National Hurricane Center. We're going to take a look at more National Hurricane Center graphics, but first I just want to get the latest aircraft reconnaissance that they were flying through here. I believe this is an Air Force mission into Hilary. And you can see, again, still finding pressure at 959 millibars, which is very impressive. And in some of these, these wind speeds that they picked up, still around 95 knots, somewhere in that region. Now, I do understand that this is at flight level, all right, and there are stronger winds in this storm patch right here as well. So obviously, the winds at the surface will be a little bit weaker versus at flight level, but this is still, kind of a good gauge, all right, what this map is showing us here. All right, you can see kind of like in the last 10 minutes, if you will, just where they've been flying. All right, and if we look here, you can see of course the line is a little bit broken, but you can kind of see the MSLP when they were near the center, that lower pressure they were picking up. And you can see, well, because they are flying kind of out of the system now, that's why we're seeing those surface winds kind of taper down. But there are also aircraft reconnaissance missions that you can certainly watch live. You keep, refreshing the page on Tropical Tidbits. You can watch as the hurricane hunters fly through there. It's a pretty cool feature of the website. And then if we go back to National Hurricane Center here, you can see where we had, like, for example, Cabo San Lucas, we've already had tropical storm force winds. Hurricane force winds we have not felt, at least on land yet. And I don't think we will, because it'll probably start weakening from hurricane status soon. So at least it's good that the hurricane force winds are staying offshore. It's a good thing. However, that doesn't mean you're going to miss all the bad impacts, right? There's still plenty of bad things that can happen with 50-mile-an-hour winds and a lot of rain, for example. And still a good bit of waves and storm surge, for example. And also keep in mind that because there are mountains here in Southern California, it's not only going to enhance the rainfall, because you're going to have the rain falling, the air is able to rise, and you have the rain that's going to be flowing down the mountains and into the valleys, which is going to make that worse, right? So that's just one of the things, and also because you're higher up, in some of these more elevated locations, your wind speeds are going to be even higher. So it's kind of weird because even though the mountains kind of kill a storm when it moves over it, when you're higher up, you're still able to feel those higher wind speeds. So that's something that makes it worse for Southern California. Right? And you can see the wind field right here. I mean, it's pretty big. We're still seeing tropical storm force conditions and wind speeds along the coast of the southern tip of Baja California, if you will. All right, so as of the 3 p.m. Midtime or MDT advisory here, 110 mile an hour maximum winds. So I'm sure we'll get an update out pretty soon. Wind gusts still to category 4 strength. I mean, wind gusts are going to 130, still moving north-northwest, so not due north-northwest. And it has a pressure of 959 millibars. And it does seem to remain a hurricane 90 miles an hour as it moves closer to the Baja Peninsula. It moves a little bit closer. And we could see some hurricane conditions potentially along the coast. I believe we do have hurricane warnings. Yes, I do believe, yes, for a little bit further up on the peninsula here. Right? And you can see now the National Hurricane Center, they don't have it going like right into the Baja, like in this direction towards Arizona, but they do have it making landfall at the last second, just as it's still in the very northern part of Mexico, and then moving up into California from there. All right. And a place like Los Angeles, for example, just because you are west of that track, you're still going to be seeing a lot of rain because as you'll see in some like the radar and like some of the models will point out later, there's going to be rain bands moving to the north. So as the storm is down here, you're going to have rain bands going like this. So Los Angeles, I would say you're still in it, right? Especially wherever you got those tropical storm warnings, which is not just at the coast, by the way. They do go inland as well. So all these areas are under a tropical storm warning. You can go on your National Weather Service and go see for yourself if you would like, if you live in those regions, of course. All right, so making landfall as a 70 mile an hour tropical storm, so a borderline hurricane, which is why even further north, like south of Tijuana, we do have hurricane watches. Usually, if they forecast a tropical storm making landfall, with 65, 70 mile an hour winds, they'll still put out a hurricane watch just in case it gets to that hurricane status, right? Meaning a hurricane is possible. And the hurricane warning, meaning that conditions are imminent for hurricane conditions. It's still a tropical storm, even though a post-tropical storm as it moves up the mountains, right? Still packing 40 mile an hour winds with gusts up to 60. So, and again, that's even higher on the mountains. So, yeah, definitely could be a problem here for California. Not even just Southern California, Central California, up into Nevada as well, Las Vegas even. All right, so here are some key messages. Preparations for flooding impacts should be completed as soon as possible. Of course, they should be done by today at the latest. And heavy rainfall will begin, as I've said before, well in advance of the center arriving, right? Landslides, mudslides, debris flows, a lot of flooding. And we're going to take a look in just a little bit why the flooding threat could be exacerbated by this storm, okay? Versus like if it were to happen, in the southeast, for example. We're going to take a look at the difference. But hurricane conditions are expected along the west central coast of the Baja California Peninsula within the hurricane warning area, just as I showed you earlier, that red zone right here. And tropical storm conditions will begin Sunday in portions of the southwestern U.S., including California. Strong gusty winds in higher terrain and even at the surface. And the gusty winds will go well inland as well as the rain. But the rain is a threat that definitely needs to be focused on. With the wind maybe coming in second there, but rainfall biggest threat here, as is with a lot of tropical systems. Right, large swells generated by Hilary will affect portions of the Baja California Peninsula and Southern California over the next couple of days, but that's been starting already. All right, I mean, you see these storms that are off the coast of the Atlantic; they could be hundreds of miles away and still making, at least rip current or wave impacts. This system's like a few hundred miles away from California, so it's definitely already making those wave impacts. Right, so these swells are likely to cause life-threatening surf and rip current conditions. I think it goes without saying when the storm is near, do not go out in the water. I hope that goes without saying. If we look at the rainfall forecast here, I will refresh, even though I just did, just to make sure we're getting the latest forecast here. This dark green, which is, widespread, is 2 to 4 inches. And you might think, now if you're living in the east, like where I am, you might think, okay, then that's a lot, but it's not terrible. For the west, though, that's a lot of rain. Okay, again, because they usually don't get that much rain in the first place, so the terrain is all dry. So it's gonna go into a state of shock when it gets all that water, and it's gonna cause a lot of flooding. And of course, some of the burn scars areas from where we still have had fires in the past, right? And so that's the 2 to 4 inches of rain there. This pretty much goes from San Diego, Los Angeles, all the way up to Vegas and Tonopah. I hope I'm saying that right. And Eli in Nevada. Hope I'm saying that right. Sorry, I'm not from Nevada. But in those mountainous locations, all right, we see 4 to 6 inches of rain, including the parts of the southern Sierra Nevada and into Nevada. All right, and even inside of that, I mean, look at the northern Baja California here. 15 to 20 inches of rain in some of the mountain areas, and rainfall could exceed 10 inches in the southern mountain range here, just east of Los Angeles. I did just forget the name off the top of my head. The SoCal mountain range. I forget what it's named. But yes, lots of rain, and it could approach double digits. And even if it doesn't, remember the terrain is only going to exacerbate that flood threat even more. And even if you're in the light green, 1 to 2 inches, nothing to sneeze at. Again, especially if you live in this area where it's always so dry. And remember, this is a pretty quick moving storm. So that rainfall is going to come in and it's going to come out. Now it's a good thing because the storm's moving fast. We won't see a lot of rain. We won't see widespread double digit totals. But because it's coming fast, it's going to be, we're talking about flash flooding threats. And of course, that's also not a good thing. So, you're weighing your pros and cons here, right? And a flood risk put out by the Weather Prediction Center, it's not that often you see this pink, right? The high flood risk, right? And that means you're going to see a lot of flooding, especially in California, no less. It's really rare. Anywhere I would say in slight is where you should really start taking it seriously. And of course, you've got moderate and high where you should really be taking it seriously, like Los Angeles, San Diego, Bakersfield. Right, and this is the compiled average of the 3 days. You can see each day individually on the right side of your screen. All right, so this would be today. This would be on Sunday tomorrow, and then that would be on Monday. Now here I have pulled up some river gauges. All right, and these are definitely going to be worth watching over the next couple of days here. Now, sadly, if you see a lot of blue boxes or diamonds or circles. Right, and the reason they're different shapes is because obviously you can read here. If it's square, forecasts are available. Observations are only available if it's a diamond, and then if both probability and forecast are available, you'll see like the circle shape. But regardless, a lot of these are colored blue, which means a flood category is not defined. Which means, like, if you were to hover over one of these, you would be able to see where the river's at, but a flood category isn't really defined. Meaning that you don't really know if that said river is actually in flood stage. But some of these that are green, meaning they're not in flooding right now, but we can observe them. All right, some of these rivers that we're definitely gonna need to be watching. Some have forecasts like this one, the Mojave River near Victorville, California. Their forecast only has the river increasing by about like a half a foot, but these forecasts are generally very conservative and very like the purple line you can see is the forecast there. So I would expect it to go up higher than that. Of course, flood stage, you can see there is 16 feet. Of course, like the Santa Ana River, for example, there's a big spike, right? But again, some of these, don't have a flood category defined, so you do have to watch out for that. But a spike from where it's at now at 2.2 feet going up to maybe 6 feet on Sunday. So still a pretty big increase in these rivers. And you can see here's the Santa Ana River has been generally flat. If you go down the Oceanside, you can see a spike there. Now, they actually have, the more, conservative and hawkish, or not hawkish, but, generally lower forecast still has it going up to 8.2, which is that action stage. Now, action stage, I mean, in the name means action. So typically an action stage, again, depends on the river and the gauge, typically means the river's not actually flooding yet, but it's in that zone where you need to watch out. Because if it reaches minor stage, 11.2 feet on this river, for example, you would really need to, have yourself prepared. All right, so getting up in the action stage is still a big deal. If we go down to the St. Louis Ray River in Oceanside, California, you can see there forecast to spike up to 7.2 feet. And finally, if we go down to San Diego, you can see it spikes well into action stage here. I mean, we broke it by almost a foot. So going up to 8.4 feet there is the forecast. And I'm sure, right, and the reason these forecasts are generally so, low is because they don't, I mean, you could put out a forecast for how much rain is coming out, right? But there could be isolated areas and said thunderstorms when the storm comes, right? Or maybe we get a couple inches more rainfall than we expected, or maybe this doesn't factor in the runoff that we're going to get from the higher terrain. So all of this you do need to keep in mind, because you can see there's a 6,500 foot mountain right here. So you bet it's going to flow. The water's going to flow down, into that river. So All these things need to be taken in consideration when you're looking at these river gauge forecasts, but I thought I'd throw that out there. Now, about the rainfall over the last, so if we go to the last 30 days, all right, you can see, actually, I don't know why California is so dark gray because it was not before, but it was not like that before. But the way it was showing was about between, a half inch below average and around a half inch above. So pretty much this whole area, I don't know why it's doing this dark gray, but before it was showing that. So this area is basically dead where it needs to be in terms of a rainfall in the last 30 days. We haven't had too much or too little. We've pretty much had a normal amount, which in this area is nothing. So that's something worth noting there. So of course, that's why I said these areas could go into a state of shock when they see all this rainfall coming in. All right, as we head towards the tail end of the video here, we're going to take a look at some models in just a little bit. Actually, coming up very soon. But first, let's take a look at windy.com. You can see the storm center is sitting over 80-degree waters right now, pretty much at dead 80 degrees. Now, while you might think, oh, that's warm, why is the storm weakening? Pretty much it's because of the wind shear, right? As we start to move north, it's moving into a pretty intense wind shear zone, and that's why it's going to start weakening. And also because the waters will get cooler and cooler as the storm makes its way to the northwest. Like I was mentioning, if this was going up the Gulf of California, I mean, it'd have no problem. 90 degrees all the way up there. Even I just saw there near San Felipe. I just saw that. I don't know how can I get it back. There we go. 91 in terms of sea surface temperatures, right? And compared to the Gulf, not much different. 88, 90 some spots. So yeah, both sides here very warm in terms of our sea surface temperatures. Now, as the storm makes its way to the north, you can see low 70s. Like, I mean, not even going up that much further to the northwest, right? And we're already hitting 72. So the waters are going to drop off rapidly to the temperatures because the waters are usually pretty cool near California. Like you go up towards, San Francisco, your water is right in the upper 50s. So that would absolutely kill a storm, even if there was no shear at all. But it will move to the north, and you can see even upper 60s. And this is like the predicted landfall zone from the National Hurricane Center, and waters are 64. All right. Now, the warmer waters do, enhance the storm's wind speed. It enhances moisture into the system. So these cooler waters might be a bit, I wouldn't even say of a savior because the storm is still going to be a tropical storm, right? That moisture is already being carried with it. It's generated all the energy it needs. So even though it'll weaken, it'll still be, the storm will still pack a, hefty punch. And I mean, there will be a little bit warmer waters. Like this is 70 versus like 64 over here. But I mean, 70, 64 really wouldn't strengthen a storm either way. So any water that's kind of below, you pretty much want 80-degree waters to strengthen a storm pretty well. And then like if you have like a major hurricane, you would need like a minimum, I'd say, of around 77 just to maintain its strength. So once it starts dropping to the mid, low 70s, upper 60s, mid 60s like it is, I don't see a path to where the storm, maintains its strength, let alone strengthens even more. So the storm reached its peak a while ago. It was a Category 4, and it will weaken, but still, again, pack quite the punch. And here you can see that evidence here of the wind shear. All right, this zone right here, we're talking high amounts of shear. All right, 40, 50, 60 knots in terms of our shear tendencies here. So that's pretty high. And it's even been increasing by a few knots, 5 to 10 knots over the past 24 hours. So that's an even worse sign for the system. But I guess it's good news, for California. But that will not take away, the rainfall threat. So let's look at the HWRF here. Pretty good intensity model. We're going to take a look at where the system will be heading. And as we play this out, you can see a lot of, very high DBZs here on the radar, meaning those deeper colors, those yellows, oranges, and reds, purples, heavy rainfall. Now, they have been pretty consistent, I will say, of it paralleling the Baja California coastline. You can see right here, that's pretty much the coastline right there. And as it moves north, yeah, they pretty much have it making landfall near, like, little San Diego's down here, kind of near Los Angeles. And here's, like, LA, like, over here. Yeah, you can see that massive that massive area of rainfall, this massive complex there. So yeah, that's not so good. And you can see it moving over the mountains. All the Sierra Nevada is covered in heavy rain. Yeah, this is not going to be good. All right, definitely be sure you're ready at the latest by today because you're going to need it. And even the remnants, here's Oregon, Central Oregon. It's still heavy bands of rainfall. This is as we head towards Monday morning. But that's the good news about all this, right? So you'll see the rainfall start to work in very late tonight, but mostly early tomorrow, in through Sunday afternoon, maybe into the overnight, and then by Monday morning, we'll see some of it left over. But the storm center will be out of here by Monday, especially in the afternoon. And according to the H Wharf, it's in Canada by Tuesday. So this storm's rocking and rolling. This thing's out of here, right? So if we take a look now at the H Wharf parent, which is the same exact models I just showed you, but this one I have showing wind speeds, and it's also more zoomed out, so you can kind of get a better look for yourself. So as it approaches California, so they're calling for like a Los Angeles landfall. I still am a little doubtful about that, right? Unless at the last second, like the steering currents allow it to jerk a little bit to the west, or maybe it'll go this way. Either way, I don't think it'll affect its overall strength that much. But yeah, making landfall as a 60, 65 mile an hour tropical storm, still pretty significant, right? And then you'll see it kind of getting pulled up here. High pressure kind of pulling it up this way. You'll kind of send it, kind of just send it swinging into Canada, right? So I kind of got that blocking high there, if you will. And there you go, moving off to the northeast and gone. All right, it just becomes like a little main low pressure system at that point. All right, if we look at the NAM model, if we look at the NAM model, and I've chosen the NAM because it's kind of more of a high definition model, and of course since the storm's coming tomorrow practically, I figured it'd be a good idea to get a look at this. So take a look at the rain. It's early Sunday. This is like 4 o'clock in the morning Eastern time. So over there, I guess it would be like 1 a.m. Western time. You can see the rain already moving through. That's more moderate rain. The real heavy stuff comes in Sunday evening. So this is 6 p.m. Eastern. So this is about 3 p.m. Central time. You can see that low just chugging along here, providing a lot of rain. Then it kind of shoots up into Nevada, Oregon, Idaho will all feel the remnants. It got flood watches, I believe, up there in Idaho, Oregon, Nevada as well. And you'll see it keep moving. You'll see the storm keep moving up there, right? As we head into Monday morning, and then it is out of here. Right? How much rainfall, right? We can actually look at that now with the NAM model because the H-Wharf doesn't really provide that. We take a look at the rainfall over the Sierra Nevada. It's just the 6 to 10 inches. I mean, woof, that is not good. Again, I know that sounds like a lot to people, but you have to understand it's even worse than it seems because of that terrain. I mean, we got mountains here like 5 figures in terms of like the height, like 10,000 feet. We got some very high mountains here, so that's only going to make things worse for rain and wind, right? And even down here in Southern California, not too far away from LA, 4 to 6 inches. I would say San Diego and LA, 2 to 4 inches. And while they may not get the worst of the rainfall in terms of coming out of the sky, right? We see most of that's probably going to fall over the mountains. But if you live in LA, San Diego, you're going to get whatever's flowing down from these mountains into the valleys. So yeah, it's going to be like a 1-2 punch for everybody there. Not good at all. Even central and southern Nevada, 2 to 4 inches of rain. Even up in the Idaho as well, could even get that. Oregon, around 2 inches of rain. Again, in a pretty quick amount of time. Because this storm, like I said, it's in there Sunday morning. It's out by overnight, and the Monday morning it's gone, right? And like I said, by Tuesday, early Tuesday, it's in Canada. So this thing's going to be chugging along. All right, if we take a look here at the European model, the 12Z model run, all right, you can see again, rain moves in Sunday morning. The real heavy stuff comes in Sunday evening, especially for LA, San Diego. You can also see like Bakersfield getting hit there overnight. And again, Monday, it's out. And how much rain does the European model call for? Let's find out. All right, go about 84 hours. We'll do the same as the NAM here. And you can see a little bit more. Now, they're not as high definition of a model, so maybe that's why they're a little bit more lower with the rainfall rates. But still, 2 to 4 inches is a wide spread, and I certainly think it could be more than that. And finally, if we take a look at the high-resolution model, I know this definitely felt like a longer video today, but I feel like I needed it because I don't think we've ever seen a tropical storm warning issued for Southern California. If there has been, it's definitely been over 100 years, but definitely nothing like this in recent recorded history. So this is definitely one for the record books here, regardless of what ends up happening. But you can see, again, rainfall comes through. You can see this Sunday morning. This is about 5 a.m. Central Time. And you can see there's the center of the storm that will pack the heaviest punch, and they have it moving like right over San Diego. So the high-resolution model, I would say this is a good model to determine the track. And I do have, there are like 22 and 21Z model runs out, but I have 18Z chosen because if I had the later model runs chosen, I'd only be able to go out this far. So we still need to be able to go out a couple days. So this is still like the most recent run that goes out this far. right? So that's kind of like the way they work. So 12Z, 18Z, you know, the major time marks, they have it going out further in time. So look, if I go back to here, you can see it only goes out to 18 hours. So that's why I have this model run chosen, in case you were wondering. But again, center moves in. You can see kind of going over the Baja Peninsula, but then the low kind of heads right for Los Angeles. And the rain core seems to be on the northern side of the storm and just to the west. So normally it's like that northeast quadrant, but once it moves over land, it kind of loses tropical characteristics, becomes more post-tropical. You see, at first you could see, right, we have rainfall on that northern side, that northeast side. We got some banding here, but then it'll kind of transition to the north and northwest side as it becomes more of a post-tropical low. So then that moves up into the north, and even northern, they have it going pretty far west, right? Northern California could even get a taste of Hilary's remnants once we head into Monday. How much rainfall? Again, widespread 2 to 4 inches, with some mountain locations getting 6 to 10, over a foot here in this one little tiny area, and over 6 inches there in parts of the southern Sierra Nevada. So definitely quite a storm to watch. Um, Definitely be prepared. I'm sure you're prepared by now if you live in Southern California, Nevada. If you live in Oregon and Idaho, I'd still be prepared, and I'd say today is your day, or tomorrow at the latest. So stay safe, everybody. Thank you very much for watching. I'm the Weather Dude signing off. Till next time, I'll catch you guys in the next video.